My name is Rachel Monroe, and I'm 34 years old, a marketing manager living in Omaha, Nebraska. Every corner of my life, every piece of success I hold today, I build from scratch. No safety nets, no handouts, just pure determination. That morning, in the middle of a high-pressure presentation with my team, my phone buzzed against the polished table. I tried to ignore it, but the screen lit up again and again, flashing a name I knew all too well, Lydia, my 17-year-old sister. The message was short, but sharp enough to pierce through my concentration. Send me $2,800 for prom. I need it now. I blinked, thinking I'd misread. $2,800 for one night of glitter, music, and photos? My fingers trembled as I typed back a blunt reply. No, earn it yourself. Minutes later, another message appeared, this time from my mother, Elaine Monroe. Pay or don't bother calling yourself part of this family. The words stung like a slap across the face. My chest tightened as anger flared through me. Anger and something even deeper, realization. I had been their safety net for years, funding every emergency, paying every unexpected bill, never questioning their intentions. But now it hit me. This wasn't love. It was manipulation disguised as family loyalty. That night, I couldn't sleep. I paced the apartment floor, the city lights bleeding through my blinds as my mother's text replayed in my mind. Pay or get out of this family. By midnight, I made a decision that would change everything. I grabbed my phone, opened my banking app, and pressed cancel, 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 one by one, shutting down every automatic transfer to the family account I'd opened years ago. By the next morning, my life had flipped upside down, and soon, I would uncover a truth so vile it would rewrite everything I thought I knew about my family. To understand why my sister's message shook me so deeply, you have to understand where I came from. I grew up in a house where love was conditional and favoritism was the law. My parents, Elaine and Thomas Monroe, were ordinary people with extraordinary illusions. They lived in a modest suburban home, but tried to project the image of a wealthy, picture-perfect family. When Lydia was born, I was already 16, old enough to see how quickly everything changed. My parents poured all their time, money, and affection into her. Lydia was the golden child, the miracle baby, the do-over after years of financial stress and marital fights. Meanwhile, I worked nights at a diner, saving every dollar I could just to keep myself afloat. When I asked for help, $50 for a school field trip, my mother's response was ice cold. You're old enough to figure it out. But when Lydia wanted ballet lessons, new phones, designer handbags, they'd move heaven and earth to make it happen. I told myself it didn't matter. I'd prove myself through hard work, earn the life I deserved, and never depend on anyone again. And I did. By 24, I landed my first marketing position. By 30, I was managing major campaigns. I built my independence, my apartment, my savings, everything, without leaning on them. But success, as it turned out, only made me more useful to them. 4 years ago, my parents convinced me to open a joint account for emergencies. The plan sounded noble. I'd help cover bills, groceries, maybe a medical expense or two. I agreed, transferring small amounts each month, too busy to track where it all went. I thought I was easing their stress. I thought I was doing the right thing. But deep down, I was feeding their addiction to comfort. And Lydia, she grew up with that luxury baked into her bones. By 17, she expected the world to bend around her. She didn't want part-time jobs or scholarships. She wanted shortcuts. I should have seen it sooner. The new jewelry, the vacations, the way my mother deflected every question about their finances with vague excuses like, we've had a rough month, or your sister needed help. Still, I ignored it. Until that morning, when the mask slipped entirely. I remember sitting at my desk that day, my phone buzzing relentlessly. Lydia again. You're seriously not sending it? You're rich, Rachel. Stop being selfish. Selfish? The irony made my blood boil. I called her. Lydia, I said, keeping my voice steady. $2,800 for prom? That's insane. You're old enough to earn it. Her tone snapped like a whip. You don't get it. I deserve this. Everyone's renting limos, wearing designer gowns. I'm not showing up in something cheap. You're not showing up at all if you expect me to pay for it, I replied. She gasped, like I'd insulted her personally, then hung up. I barely had time to take a breath before another text appeared. My father this time. Do the right thing, Rachel. Family helps family. Family, that word twisted inside me. For years, I'd been helping, sending money, paying their overdue bills, bailing them out of messes I didn't create. But this wasn't family anymore. It was extortion. I sat there staring at the screen, feeling years of resentment boil to the surface. Memories of working through college while they spent on luxury. Of hearing my mother tell me, "Your sister deserves better." Of watching Lydia receive praise for existing while I had to earn love like a paycheck. By late afternoon, the tension was eating me alive. I opened my banking app out of instinct. Something told me to look. That's when I saw it. A large transaction alert glowed across my screen. $5,000 withdrawn from the family account. My hands went cold. That account required both signatures for large withdrawals, and I hadn't touched it in months. The date? That morning. My heart thudded painfully. I called Lydia again. "What did you do?" I demanded. "What are you talking about?" she said, her voice dripping with false innocence. "The joint account. $5,000 is gone." She paused, then scoffed. "Why are you always so paranoid? Maybe mom used it for bills." "Bills don't cost $5,000 overnight," I snapped. "Tell me the truth, Lydia." She laughed, a cruel, dismissive sound that made my stomach twist. "You're such a control freak, Rachel. It's just money." Then she hung up. Just money. That was the moment I knew. This wasn't random. It was coordinated. My parents, my sister, they were all in on it. I sat frozen at my desk, my pulse roaring in my ears. The pieces started fitting together. The sudden demand for prom money, the aggressive threats, and now the missing $5,000. I needed help. Real help. That's when I messaged Clara Gennings, my coworker and close friend, and conveniently a corporate lawyer. "Can you meet tonight? It's about something serious and personal." She replied within minutes. Of course. My office at 6:30. By the time I arrived, the sun was melting into the horizon. Claire's office glowed with the soft amber light of her desk lamp, stacks of files surrounding her like fortresses. I sat across from her, my hands gripping the edge of the chair as I explained everything: the prom demand, the family threats, and the mysterious withdrawal. Clara listened quietly, then said, "Give me the account details. Let's take a look." I handed over the login information and she began typing swiftly, eyes narrowing as she scrolled. Minutes later, she leaned back, exhaling slowly. "Rachel, you're not going to like this," she said carefully. "What is it?" I asked. She turned a laptop toward me. "Your parents have been using that account for years to cover personal debts, credit cards, car payments, even luxury purchases." I scanned the list. Boutiques, jewelry, a travel agency. "What the hell?" I whispered. Clara continued. "And these smaller transactions, consistent payments to event planners, clothing stores, restaurants, your sister's name appears as a note on several of them." My stomach dropped. It wasn't just the prom. They'd been using my money to fund her life, her wardrobe, her vacations, her whims. "How much total?" I asked, my voice trembling. Clara hesitated. "Over the past 4 years, roughly $95,000. I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. $95,000. My money, my hard work, all siphoned away by the people who were supposed to love me. Clara's voice softened. "Rachel, you need to protect yourself, legally and financially. This isn't just family drama, it's exploitation." I nodded slowly, numbness washing over me. I wasn't sure what hurt more, the betrayal or the fact that I hadn't seen it sooner.
As I left her office that night, one thought echoed in my head. They didn't just take my money. They took my trust, and I was going to make sure they never did it again. I barely slept that night. My mind replayed every memory of the last few years. Every call that began with, "Rachel, honey, we're struggling a little this month." Every guilt trip, every teary voicemail, every story that now reeked of manipulation. By dawn, exhaustion gave way to fury. I brewed a pot of coffee and sat at my kitchen counter with a single goal: to end this. I wasn't going to be the family's ATM anymore. The first thing I did that morning was call my bank. My voice was calm, deliberate, the way it gets when I'm past anger and deep into resolute. "I need to close a joint account," I said, effective immediately. The banker on the line hesitated. "It's a joint account with 2 other signatories, correct?" "Yes," I replied, "but the funds are mine. Every single deposit came from my income." Within minutes, the account that had chained me to my family's chaos for 4 years was gone. I could almost hear the locks clicking shut in my mind, like the sound of a vault ceiling. But I knew the silence wouldn't last long. At exactly 12:09 p.m., my phone rang. "Mom" flashed across the screen. I took a deep breath and answered. "Rachel, what did you do?" Her voice was sharp, breathless. "The account isn't working. We can't access anything." "I closed it," I said simply. "And before you start, I know about the money, the $100,000 you drained over the years." There was a stunned pause. Then her voice cracked like lightning. "How dare you go snooping through our private business? You had no right." "No right?" I snapped, my voice trembling. "It was my money, Mom. I had every right. You've been lying to me for years, pretending you were barely surviving while you were paying off loans and buying Lydia a luxury lifestyle." Her breath hitched on the other end. "We only did it because we needed help," she stammered. "You wouldn't understand. You've always had it easy." That laugh that came out of me was cold, almost bitter. "Easy? I've worked for everything I have. You gave Lydia everything and told me to figure it out when she was her age. And I did. You just didn't like that I didn't need you anymore." She went silent, but I could hear her breathing, uneven, defensive. "Rachel," she finally said, her voice softening into manipulation, "you're overreacting. You're making a scene out of nothing." That was her favorite tactic. Gaslight me until I doubted my own sanity. But not this time. "I'm done being your safety net. You and Dad can deal with the consequences." Before she could reply, I hung up. 30 seconds later, my father called. "Rachel, let's be rational. Your mother's upset. You didn't have to go this far." "This far?" I repeated, my voice rising. "You both lied to me. You hid debts, took my money, and pretended it was for groceries or bills. I trusted you. We were desperate. You think it's easy raising a family, keeping up appearances? We had no choice." I clenched my jaw. "You had a choice. You could have told the truth. Instead, you treated me like an open wallet." He sighed heavily. "You've always been dramatic, Rachel. You don't understand family responsibility." Family responsibility. That phrase cut like glass, because for years, I had been responsible for them. I was the one patching holes in their sinking ship while they poked new ones. I let out a slow, steady breath. "Dad, listen carefully. I've canceled every link between us. The account's closed. You can't take another dollar from me. Not now, not ever." There was a pause. Then his tone hardened. "You owe us. After everything we've done for you." That's when I lost it. "Owe you? For what? For teaching me that love means debt? For using me every time Lydia wanted a new phone? I don't owe you anything." I hung up before I could hear another word. For the rest of the day, I tried to focus on work, but my hands shook as I typed. The adrenaline refused to fade. By evening, my phone had 12 missed calls, 8 voicemails, and 22 texts, all from my family. When I finally listened to one of the voicemails, Lydia's voice pierced through. "You're so selfish, Rachel. Mom and Dad are freaking out. You can't just do this to us." To us, as if I'd stolen from them, not the other way around. That night, I forwarded all the bank documents to my lawyer friend Clara. Her response was immediate. "Good move. Don't send them a cent. If they threaten or harass you, document everything. You have every legal right to protect yourself." For the first time in months, I felt grounded. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't cruel. I was taking back what was mine. The next morning, I decided I wouldn't hide behind phone calls anymore. I needed to face them, to look them in the eyes and make them say it. The drive back to Lincoln felt endless. The same highway I used to take every Thanksgiving now felt foreign, almost hostile. When I pulled up to my parents' house, a 2-story suburban home with freshly painted shutters, my stomach churned. They looked smaller than I remembered when I stepped inside. My mother sat on the couch, her face red from crying. My father stood behind her, arms crossed. Lydia lounged in an armchair, her phone still in hand, scrolling like none of this mattered. I placed the folder on the coffee table. Let's skip the lies. I know everything. You took over $100,000 of my money, and you're drowning in $500,000 of debt. My mother's eyes widened. You went through our accounts? My accounts, I corrected. My father stepped forward. Rachel, calm down. We'll fix this. I cut him off. No, you won't, because I'm done. Lydia looked up, finally speaking. You're being ridiculous. It's not like you're broke. You make more money than all of us combined. I turned to her, stunned by her audacity. You think this is about money? It's about respect, Lydia. It's about being treated like a person, not a paycheck. She rolled her eyes. Whatever. You're just jealous Mom and Dad care about me more. For a moment, everything inside me went silent. That one sentence, spoken with a teenager's smugness, crystallized years of hurt. They'd never see me as their daughter, only as their provider. I gathered the papers, shoving them back into the folder. My voice came out steady, but my chest felt heavy. I closed the account. You won't get another dollar from me, ever. My mother shot up from the couch, her face pale. You can't just abandon us. You abandoned me first, I said quietly. Their living room erupted into noise, my father shouting about loyalty, my mother crying about betrayal, Lydia whining about her ruined prom. But I didn't flinch. I turned, walked to the door, and didn't look back. That moment, walking out of that house, was the most painful and liberating thing I'd ever done. When I got home that night, the silence didn't feel empty anymore. It felt like freedom. I blocked their numbers, deleted their emails, and set firm boundaries: physical, emotional, financial. The chains were finally broken. It hurt. God, it hurt. But in that pain was something new: strength. I realized then that sometimes revenge isn't about getting even. It's about reclaiming the peace they stole from you. And as I poured myself a glass of wine and watched the city lights shimmer through my window, I whispered to myself the words I wished I'd learned years ago. I don't owe them anything. Not anymore. Months passed, seasons shifted. The chaos that once ruled my life had been replaced by something I hadn't felt in years: quiet stability. At first, it was unsettling. I was so used to living on alert, waiting for the next guilt-filled call or emotional ambush. Now the silence was unfamiliar, almost honking. But slowly, it became something else: peace. The first few weeks after cutting my family off were the hardest. I'd wake up instinctively checking my phone for messages that no longer came. The same phone that once overflowed with pleas for help now sat still and silent on my nightstand. It was strange, liberating, yet lonely. I started seeing Dr. Keller, a therapist recommended by my lawyer friend Clara. In our first session, I sat there rambling, trying to justify my decision, that I wasn't cruel, that I wasn't selfish, that I was just tired of being used. She listened patiently, then said something that stayed with me. You've been trained to believe love must be earned, but what you gave wasn't love, Rachel. It was servitude.
That line broke me open. All the years of confusion and guilt made sense. My parents hadn't wanted a daughter, they wanted a lifeline. And when I finally cut the cord, they called it betrayal. 3 months later, my cousin Megan called unexpectedly. Her tone was cautious, like she wasn't sure how I'd react. "Rachel," she said, "I thought you should know. Your parents, they lost the house." I froze. What do you mean, lost it? They filed for bankruptcy. The debt's caught up. The credit cards, the loans, even the second mortgage. The bank repossessed the house last week. I sat in silence, the phone pressed against my ear. I should have felt pity or shock, but instead, I felt something else. Inevitability, like a storm that had been building for years finally hitting land. Megan sighed. Your mom told everyone you abandoned them. She said they had no one left. My chest tightened. I looked out my window at the city skyline glowing in the distance. They abandoned me long before I walked away, I said softly. There was a pause, then Megan's hesitant voice. I know. Honestly, everyone knew how they treated you. We just didn't want to interfere. That hit harder than I expected. People had seen it. The favoritism, the manipulation, the endless taking, and they'd said nothing. I didn't blame them. Family dynamics are messy. But hearing it confirmed was like finally seeing a reflection of my own reality. Before hanging up, Megan added, I heard Lydia's working part-time at a clothing store now. She's not in college yet. I guess she's trying to figure things out. I didn't respond. But after the call ended, I sat there for a long time picturing my sister, the girl who once called me selfish for refusing to buy her a $2,800 prom dress, folding clothes behind a register, earning her first paycheck. It didn't make me happy, not exactly. It just made things feel balanced. Weeks later, I ran into an old neighbor from my hometown, Mrs. Wilkins, at a coffee shop in Omaha. She recognized me instantly. Rachel Monroe! Goodness, I almost didn't believe it when I heard. You've really built a wonderful life here. I smiled politely, trying my best. She hesitated before lowering her voice. Your parents stopped by our church food pantry last month. They looked different, tired. I swallowed hard. For a second, guilt tugged at the edges of my chest, that old reflex I thought I'd buried. But then I remembered the sleepless nights, the tears, the manipulation, the emotional blackmail. They made their choices, I said quietly. Mrs. Wilkins nodded. Sometimes people only learn the value of a bridge after they've burned it. Her words stayed with me all day. Life moved forward in quiet, subtle ways. I threw myself into work again, building campaigns, mentoring my team, rediscovering the joy of creating something purely my own. I even started volunteering, teaching financial literacy to young women at a local shelter. Maybe because, deep down, I wanted to help others learn what took me a decade to understand. That giving doesn't always mean helping. One evening, after a long day, I received an email from an unknown sender. The subject line simply read, "From Mom." My breath caught. For a moment, I considered deleting it, but curiosity won. I opened it. Rachel, we're not doing well. The house is gone. Your father is working odd jobs, and Lydia's struggling to adjust. We never meant for things to turn out this way. You've made your point. Please, if you still have any love left for us, help us get back on our feet. We're family. That still has to mean something. Mom. I stared at the words, emotion rising in waves, anger, sadness, disbelief. But beneath all that was clarity. This wasn't an apology. It was another plea, another manipulation wrapped in guilt. There was no accountability, no remorse, just another version of "you owe us." I drafted a reply, my hands steady. Mom, I hope you and Dad find peace, but I can't help you anymore. The love I have for you doesn't require me to destroy myself. You chose your path. I've chosen mine. I hit send, and as the message whooshed away, I felt something release inside me, a weight I didn't even realize I'd still been carrying. A year passed. My life became my own again. I traveled to Italy, my first real vacation in years, and stood on a quiet balcony in Florence watching the sunrise paint the city gold. For once, I wasn't thinking about what bill I'd have to cover or what emotional mess I'd have to clean up next. When I got home, I decided to tell my story publicly, not as revenge, but as release. I recorded a video and posted it online under the title, "I stopped funding my family and it saved my life." I spoke about growing up in a family that confused love with obligation, about the pain of being the responsible one, about the courage it takes to walk away. I didn't name them, but I spoke my truth, raw, unfiltered, unashamed. Within days, the comments flooded in. "This happened to me too. Thank you for saying what I never could. You're not alone." For the first time, my pain became something useful, something healing, not just for me, but for others trapped in similar cycles. Now, when I look back, I don't see myself as a victim or even a survivor. I see a woman who chose herself. I've learned that family isn't defined by blood or shared history. It's defined by respect and the courage to say no when you're being taken for granted. People often ask me if I ever regret it, walking away, cutting ties, closing the account. My answer is always the same. No, because I didn't just close a bank account that day. I closed a chapter, and in doing so, I opened a new one built on not guilt or debt or fear, but on freedom. If you've ever been trapped in that same loop, giving until you're empty, carrying burdens that aren't yours, hear me when I say this. You don't owe anyone your peace. You don't owe anyone your savings, your sanity, or your silence. Protect your boundaries like your life depends on them, because in many ways, it does. My name is Rachel Monroe, and this was the story of how I stopped letting my family define my worth and finally started living for myself.